Back in February, I want to say, I decided to hop onto Fakemon creating. Being essentially a PokeTuber who recently has specialized into Pokemon lore and design origins, I figured trying to create some sort of dream game concept would be a good step to take. It may help me, and even others, get a better appreciation for the work that Game Freak does. Just about every Pokemon these days have multiple layers of meaning to its name and design. And sure, some are more complex than others, but comparing most Pokemon to most other Pokemon-like games, it's clear to see who puts more effort into their design inspirations. Choice in art direction is totally subjective, so it's totally fine to hate on Pokemon designs, but at least the majority of Pokemon these last few generations aren't just literally slap an element onto an animal and call it good. We're creative. Get it? It's a flamingo that's fire type because flamingo sounds like flamingo. We're so good! As you'll see in my backlog of videos, I really nerd out when their concepts are just purely amazing. Orbeetle has one of the best design philosophies, or circular reasoning, I don't know what to call it, but it's good, okay? Anyway, I wanted to make a dream concept, so here's the beginning of a 6-part video series where I'm just explaining all of my ideas. Not only for a new region filled with new Pokemon, but also several new regional variants and game mechanics, plot direction, and of course, legendary lore. And, of course, what better place to start than with the starters? Let's go! Oh yeah, I should probably also mention, I am very bad at art. Like, graphic design, sure. Video editing, sure. Photoshop, heck yes. But don't you dare ask me to draw anything, because these are the results you'll get. So I commissioned a load of Fakemon artists to help me out with this series. And credit where credit is due. While fundamentally the ideas and researched connections are mine, I worked with a lot of these designers' own ideas on how to make them look even better too. They really helped a lot. In the case of these starters, they are all the work of Oscar Belmont, at rgraywind on Twitter. He's also done a lot of work for Mr. Buddy, who coincidentally is also doing a region based on the Pacific Northwest right now. So the starters, they need to fit the region they are in at least a little bit, right? I think so. So to fully understand why they are the way they are, you gotta know the region. Welcome to the Kaskade region. Originally spelled with a K and then a C, but I just kept messing it up and adding a second K, so I decided, screw it, it has a second K now. It's based on where I live, the Pacific Northwest, but rather than just literally the Pacific Northwest states, I decided to get a little more creative with it. See, I like when Pokemon regions are based on real places, but they take a lot of liberties with that place. The most recent region is the best example. Galar is based on Great Britain, but if you flipped all of its features upside down and it was basically just England, like England took over Scotland and Wales and moved all the cities around. So what I did with the Kaskade region was take Oregon and Washington, which are similar sized, and basically overlaid them on top of each other, and then mushed in some border elements, so like southernmost British Columbia, western Idaho, and northern California. But I'll get way more into the details in the region video. Here are your starters. Llampas, Therpal, and Burbwhirl. Now, the pattern lovers among you will notice that they fit the theoretical idea that the starters of the same type have certain things in common, like the fire starters coming from something similar to the Chinese zodiac. Here's the snake. The grass starter being extinct megafauna. Here's a North American Ice Age camel. And the water starter being a weapon or warrior class. This one's more apparent in its evolutions. So let's start with Llampas. It's super cute, and I love it! It's based on a camelops, which are the common ancestor between camels, llamas, and alpacas. Both alpacas and North American camels have some extremely fluffy fur, and camels are famous for their insane drought resistance, able to store extra water in their humps. So I wanted the plant that it's mixed with to have both of those properties, which pointed me directly to pampas grass. Look at how fluffy it is! While most common in the grasslands of South America, pampas grass and its relatives have made their way all the way up to Oregon as well. And would you look at that? Camel grass. A very close relative. Camel grass. Would you look at that? Circular inspirations. It was made to be, and its name combines llama with pampas grass. Then we have Therpal, a little fire snake. It's based on the western ground snake, a native to this area, and very, very orange. And then we slapped on a lava lamp and an exhaust pipe. All of these lead well into the evolutions IMO, so when we get to those I can better explain more about Therpal too. Oh, and the name comes from thermal, referring to heat, and herp, which references amphibians and reptiles, like herpetology. Also, its face! The poor thing is so nervous and scared all the time. It's petrified. If I don't move, it won't see me. Incarnate. And lastly, Burbwhirl. Oh, looky there, a bug starter. I've always wanted one of those. It does mess with their effectiveness triangle quite a bit though, but it's a worthy sacrifice. They just won't start with a super effective move for that famous first fight. You know, like the classic Pokemon games. It's just scratch and tackle all over and over instead of fire blast and you just kill the other one in 2 turns. It's lame. Burbwhirl's name comes from burble, like a burbling brook. You know, a small stream that makes noise. And whirl, as in whirlpool, and whirligig, which are these things. I swear, like every coastal city in Oregon has a gift shop dedicated to them. But also there's whirligig beetles. These things. It's a family of water beetle that go by all sorts of names. I always used to call them boatmen, because they look like little boats with 2 oars sticking out the side. Anyway, being the first stage, I wanted to sort of incorporate the larval stage of these beetles into the design, but the problem is that they are disgusting looking, and starter Pokemon are supposed to be cute or cool or something. So we sort of mixed the larva and adult stages together and gave it a sort of so ugly it's cute kind of vibe. You know, like Snubble, or Pugs for that matter. Like, they are as ugly as feasibly reasonable, but they're still kind of cute, I guess. Oh, and that's a bubble that it's blowing on its head, like how babies have snot bubbles. It mainly uses bubble moves, and it can also blow that bubble big and wear it like a protective helmet. Which gets me to the abilities of all 3. So another big thing you'll need to know for the context of the designs of these starters is the new game mechanic I thought up. Now, to keep it extremely simple for now, as I'll have a whole explanation video about it later, the whole region has extreme seasons and weather, and has filled the Pokemon here with a sort of weather energy. Battles are not only fought directly like normal, but control of the weather is a big deal again. And certain weather conditions can stack, and there's a whole lot more of them. That'll be its own video. But since that's the whole thing, I wanted the starters to all sort of reference this in their abilities, and even in what they are based on. Burbwhirl here is able to blow itself an air bubble, which protects it and its line from weather effects that impact air quality. In a way, it's kind of like a Raquinid's head, except it's still an air bubble. Therpal is literally and figuratively hydrophobic. It's scared of getting wet, hence the pattern on its eye making it look worried. But it really has nothing to fear because, well, it's a bit hydrophobic. Water slides off of its rubbery body, rendering it immune to the effects of rain and snow. And then Llampas. Well, it's a camel, and camel grass, so it's drought resistant. It's immune to weather effects that change temperature. So all together, they cover the spectrum of weather effects. Oh, and one last thing. A big part of starter design philosophy is that they each have their own personalities, often a cute, cool, and funny one. So Therpal is a funny little scaredy cat, snake. Llampas is just cute as heck, people love it, though a lot of people are also allergic to its fluffy bits. But that doesn't stop it from having a good time. It's just happy in the sun always. And then there's Burbwhirl, who gets cool later. Trust me. I mean, let's just evolve it right now. This is Spoutlaw. Spout, as in water spout, and, well, outlaw. A bad guy in the old Wild West. It's even got the hat and mustache. It's still based on the same beetle, but now it's the fully adult stage, which actually carry around bubbles like this for breathing when they dive. And some of them even have little mustaches. I love this guy already, but it gets even better. So take a look at the whirligig beetle again. See how its oar arms are posed like that? Remind you of anything? Anything related to the Wild West? Yeah. It's the cowboy duel pose, the pose that duelers take when they're about ready to draw their weapons real fast and shoot each other. And that's exactly what these water-filled bubbles on its hips are for. It will stand motionless, staring down its opponent, and then rapidly pinch at its water bubbles and form a water whip attack. Oh, so there's the weapon theming. Okay, so Inteleon took guns, so we did a whip instead. Cowboys used whips too, anyway. Spoutlaw are little ruffians. They plot heists with other Pokemon to steal large quantities of food at once, and it strokes its mustache and tilts down its hat all cool-like. But on the inside, it still feels a little bit guilty, which explains why it's not Dark-type, as well as its evolution. But before that, let's evolve Therpal. This is Aspfault. I gotta say, I'm way proud of this name. An asp is a type of snake. A fault is a giant crack in the ground, which these guys make all the time while rapidly tunneling. Oh yeah, it's fire ground type now. And together, it sounds like asphalt, the material that roads are made out of. Both because roads are, well, on the ground, it's a type of ground, and because of the term road snakes, which is a colloquial term for those lines you see on a road that's been patched up. They fill in cracks with sealant to prevent them from getting bigger, and to keep water out, because the sealant is hydrophobic. Oh, just like the Pokemon! Full circles again, this is so much fun. Also, all this connection to the road would explain the exhaust pipes too. neat. Aspfault are no longer afraid of the rain, but they do still spend a lot of time deep underground absorbing geothermal heat. But when out of the ground, you can see some of their insides moving around like a lava lamp, which made them super popular a few generations ago. And with their exhaust pipe tails, they can propel themselves even faster through the ground. Now, moving on over, Llampas evolves into Danfluff, whose name comes from fluffy, dandruff, dander, and the name Dan, because simple names like that are funny. But also because apparently the name Dan means God is my judge, or positivity. Both of which work, I guess. So Danfluff here spreads animal dander, basically the thing that people are allergic to animals are actually allergic to most of the time. It spreads it all over the place in the form of dandruff that also acts like pollen. It's a person with allergies' worst nightmare, essentially. But like, it doesn't try to bother nobody, man. It just wants to chill, relax in the sun and the grass. Let nature take its course, live life in the breeze. It doesn't judge. It sees everything and everyone in equal light. It loves to see balance in all things. Sort of referring to a stereotypical idea of what a lot of the people in this area are like, you know? Oh, and look, it's got a little hump now. How cute. And the tooth, nose, and hair are reminiscent of a cartoony caveman, because the main inspiration is the North American camel, which went extinct in the Ice Age. Now, are you ready to evolve one more time? I'm excited. I shared most of everything we've talked about so far on Twitter a while ago, but I saved these for this video. Alfalphalops! Here he is! Though incredibly dim-witted, Alfalphalops have learned to gain control of their pollen now. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. All it wants to do is see suffering end, you know? We get enough of that already. Leave as little of a mark on the world as you can. Just relax. Have some grass. The name pulls from Camelops again, that old llama camelopaka, which in a way makes it an alpha, a proto, an early build, a precursor to all of those things, hence the alpha in the name. And then alfalfa is a type of grass that is commonly fed to animals, such as domestic llamas and alpacas. The fluff on its neck and chest are sort of reminiscent of it. Its signature move, Fluff Buff, raises its defenses and evasiveness and fills the air with pollen, one of the new weather effects that I'll explain in the weather video. It's overall on the slower and lower attack side, because, you know, it's just chillin'. But it's also quite the tank, having high HP and defenses. Now, I mentioned that pampas grass is primarily found in South America, so we made the hump on this guy as shaped like the American pyramids. And the long leaves and ears on the back of its head are shaped like some Mayan and Aztec headpieces. But what are all these South American references doing in the Pacific Northwest? Well, as I'll explain in a later video, the lore, world building, and all that for the region revolves around a lot of migration and what we gain and lose due to it. But don't worry, it's not preachy trash. But a lot of new Pokemon immigrated to the region. Next up, Asphalt evolves into Tarmendoa. It's now a western ground snake mixed with a rubber boa, which then literally adds an extra layer of rubber on top of it. The name reflects this, as it ends with boa, and the rest of the name comes from tar, mend, which is what road snakes do, and tarmac, another type of road covering, like asphalt, which tends to be more resistant to scuffs and certain weather effects. Tarmandoa is incredibly fast both above and below the ground thanks to its propulsion system, and because of its heat, it forms lava tubes while digging. There are lava tubes all over this part of the world. They're neat, I've been in some. Its signature move, Thermal Vortex, has it spin its body towards the foe, creating a spinning and scorching blast of air that hits multiple enemies, and clears any weather conditions that are wet or cold. If there are none, it begins a drought. Overall, Tarmendoa is about its speed primarily. Its other stats are more or less equivalent. But with its evolution, its ability has been tweaked. Rather than simply being immune to rain and snow, it now also halves the damage it takes from water-type attacks. Meaning technically water-type attacks are still super effective on it, but it's ×2 instead of ×4. I mean, that rubber on its back makes it waterproof from that angle. And lastly, my personal favorite of the bunch, Spoutlaw evolves into Vaquamael. I had a hard time choosing between that name and Vaquamael. Which do you like better? Vaquamael? Vaquamael. Mael comes from Maelstrom, which is basically a giant oceanic whirlpool, because again, whirligig beetle, whirlpool, ha. And also, aqua is aquatic, and agua is Spanish for water, and vaquero is Spanish for cowboy. So when people think the Wild West, they don't usually think of the Pacific Northwest, but like, what do you think the Pacific Northwest was doing during that time period? Yeah, there were still cowboy stuff happening. They just had trees in the background. And seeing as this area was super close to Mexico before the Mexican-American War, and seeing that the Hispanic population here is sizable and still growing, I wanted to reference both in some way. So here's a whirligig vaquero, a lone wanderer, maybe even a sheriff. It always felt guilty pulling heists, but since it once lived as an outlaw, it now knows how they think, making them even better fighters for justice. Their water whip attacks are near unseen, and they can even use that same water whip to form a lasso whirlpool to entrap their enemies. Which brings us to the signature move, Whirl Duel. It whips up a whirlpool, a maelstrom, and launches it at the enemy, which deals damage, traps them in a whirlpool for 3 to 5 turns, and starts a rainstorm. I freaking love this mon! The hat, the pose, the cowl! Ooh! Vaquamael is a bit of a glass cannon, referencing those Wild West duels. It can deal a lot of damage with its high attack and special attack and high speed, but its HP and defenses aren't great. And in case you didn't notice, the 3 of them are all immune to their weakness's weather effect. Alfalphalops fills the air with pollen, but Vaquamael is immune to air quality changes. Vaquamael causes rain, but Tarmandoa is just immune to rain. And Tarmandoa causes droughts, but Alfalphalops is immune to temperature-related weather. So that's cool. Technically, overall though, the type triangle is still not perfect. The bug on Vaquamael makes fire balance out on it and gives it an advantage over Alfalphalops, but it's not like the official triangles are all perfect, you know? Also, as a set, the evolutions all have some theming in and of themselves. For example, Vaquamael, Spoutlaw, and Burbwhirl. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The classic Western movie turned saying or trope. We have the hero, an outlaw, and an ugly baby. Therpal, Asphalt, and Tarmendoa, it's stop, drop, and roll. You know, the fire safety thing. Smokey Bear is an American icon. Therpal gets scared and freezes in its track, Asphalt drops deep underground, and Tarmandoa is a constrictor whose signature move has it roll around, forming a vortex of heat. And then, honestly, the weakest of the 3, Llampas, Danfluff, and Alfalphalops are the 3 types of triangles. Because pyramids. Triangles. Yeah? Alfalphalops is obtuse, because it's dumb, the other definition of obtuse. Danfluff is pretty chill and sees everything and everyone equally. It's an equilateral triangle. And Llampas is a cute. Because it's cute. It's really dumb, but that's what we came up with. So, I'd like to know what you think. Given the choice, which of these 3 would you pick as your starter? Or would you just take one because you have to and then box it once you can because no Pokemon since the generation you played when you were 12 has been good? Let me know down in the comments. These took a lot of work, not just on the artist's parts, but also in coming up with everything. It takes a surprising amount of research trying to fit all these pieces together well enough. So big props to Game Freak and the Pokemon Company who have to consider all of this and even more, like global cultural acceptance, marketability, and how they would utilize their budget when animating them in the anime and what they sound like, etc. They have a big job, and I've definitely got more respect for it now. But we ain't anywhere near done. I've got a region full of ideas, several new Pokemon, new regional variants, legendary lore, and so much more. So many awesome ideas to explain. I'll have a link to a playlist here when that happens, and I hope to see you in the next one as I continue to share my ideas for this Kaskade region in Pokemon Blazing Bloom and Frigid Fall.